Hey guys, welcome to episode 74 of Biomassed. I'm Pokey Draven. Jason Larison, unfortunately, his son had a sprained ankle while playing in a bounce house, so he can't make it tonight. So we're going to be filling in for him, and hopefully it won't be a total mess, but we'll do our best.
We
So
miss having his son on the show.
yeah, no, it's always good to have the kids on there. But yeah, so let's probably kind of be a free flowing show. We just kind of found out about this at the last minute, so we're kind of scrambling for things to talk about here. But I'm sure we'll figure it out. So let's start off with introductions, going from the top with Aeon.
What's up? Aeon Amadi, I'm part of the CPM, playing Dust 514 since 2012. Yeah.
Fantastic. Sarizo.
I'm Sarizel, a member of CPM1, no longer currently sitting, and an editor on the blog and a co-host.
Awesome. And Bait.
Hey everybody, what's up? My name is Aiwha Bait. I'm a member of the Incorruptibles Corporation and writer for the Biomassed blog.
Awesome. And Darth.
Hi, I'm Darth Carbonite, member of CPM2, and here along for the ride yet again.
We're glad to have both you and Aeon. It's good to have members of the CPM on since we've lost kind of our guaranteed slot with Zell after the changing of the guard, so to speak. And Heracles.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Heracles Porsche. I am a YouTuber, altaholic, and somehow, despite being white as the unplowed snow, I am also a beaner.
Okay, then. And as I said before, I'm Pokey Draven from OSG Planetary Operations, co-host here on the Biomass podcast, and writer and editor for the blog. So without further ado, let's go right into our CPM update with Darth and Aeon. What's going on in the world of the CPM for Dust this week?
Very impatient for hotfix to drop.
Right.
Working on proposals for what we'll do next. Not a whole lot else, but we are busy.
Well, that's good. Do we have any sort of proposed, or at least when we can see the hotfix? Any general time frame?
2 weeks, maybe, at the max.
And we'll be seeing this before 1.3, I assume, correct?
Oh God, I hope so. Otherwise, we're gonna start pulling some chains.
Yeah, no, I think the hotfix is going to be interesting. It's taking a radical shift in a lot of things, so I'm curious to see how it's going to actually play out when that finally drops, especially with some of the fundamental changes that are coming. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully we can get that in the next 2 weeks or so. There's a couple things I know people wanted to talk about. We'll probably start with some of the shorter ones. So I think it was Ripley Riley that started it over on Twitter. For those of you who do Twitter, I'm attempting to figure it out and learn how it works and whatnot, but he started a hashtag PortDust514, which has been trending quite a bit recently, particularly in the last couple days. So for those of you on Twitter, get on there, hop on there and ping, all the CCP people, Hilmar, Rattati, Rouge, all the people that are involved with the projects and whatnot. And, like Darth has said in the past, people's voices are what's going to, make or break the future of the game. And I think, people need to get out there and certainly get out there and tweet about it and post about it and be vocal, come on the Biomass show and talk about it, that sort of thing. So, it's good stuff.
Our odds only get better the more noise we make.
The key being, of course, make noise and don't be an asshole about it, because people don't want to listen to assholes, which is
true.
A pitfall that I feel the Dust community tends to fall for is...
I was going to say, there's a lot of people in the Dust community who probably could take that advice.
Yeah, I can to some. If your neighbor came in and kicked your front door in and started screaming at you to mow your lawn, you're probably going to give him the finger. But if you knock nicely and ask him to do it, he's far more likely to listen. So, it's okay to be passionate, but make sure you are respectful, even if you're forward with your feedback. So, don't be a dick. So I know that Bait actually requested this one. We kind of talked about it a bit in the last show, particularly about equipment and the ISK cost associated with it, and how Logis are kind of feeling the squeeze in terms of finances and the fits they run. So I think we'll start off with Bait if you want to kind of reiterate what you were talking about last week, and we'll take the conversation from there.
Yeah, just to reiterate, in case anybody missed last week's show, Aeon put out a thread on general discussions. I don't know if it's anywhere else on the forums, but it's on general discussions for sure about about potentially making some changes to the pricing of equipment, specifically the equipment that is used most regularly by logistical roles. So that'd be your nanite injectors, your hives, drop uplinks, reptiles, etc. I don't know if that will stretch over into stuff like and active scanners are in that list too. I don't know if that'll stretch over into remotes, cloaks, and whatever other piece of equipment I'm forgetting. But yeah, there was also talk about, I believe, and Aeon, correct me if I'm wrong, about deployable equipment costing more than handheld equipment, or is that backwards?
Yeah, it's backwards.
Okay. So basically, the rep tools and the needles would cost more than drop up links and hives, correct?
It's up for debate, really, because the base price isn't what's being changed. It's the price per meta level. Because right now that price gets really steep towards the higher meta levels, especially with like the repair tools and whatnot. Meta level 8 is like a 30%, 30
I see.
multiplier.
Okay, I see.
And the reason for that thinking is because if you think about deployable equipment versus handheld equipment, like nano hives and drop links, whenever you place it down, it's the only equipment that can be taken away from you. And once the supply depots are taken out, the only way to get that back is to die.
Okay, that makes sense. At first, I don't think I understood it properly, but but now I think I do. So thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I mean, it depends on how long you live, obviously, but you are effectively, when you drop a nanohive, dropping ISK on the ground and you're leaving it there. You don't get to take it with you, so I think it might be appropriate to take a look at, exactly how much that cost scales, particularly with, the proto stuff like Anna was saying.
The one thing that I want to point out is deployable equipment is some of the most powerful, I feel.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, uplinks, I would be very hesitant to say that uplinks shouldn't be perhaps the most expensive thing, just on how incredibly powerful they are.
No, go ahead, Pokey.
I was going to add that it kind of depends on, it's a situational thing, because if you drop the nanohive and one person uses it and runs away and it gets destroyed later, that wasn't very powerful. But if you drop it and it reps up an entire squad, then obviously that was quite powerful. So it's kind of tough to gauge usefulness because it's very situational on how it's being used.
And to counter what Zell was saying about deployable equipment being the most power, I think I would have to disagree and say that the rep tool, for obvious reasons, is one of the most powerful pieces of equipment that that Logis possess. Now there are cases that are there's triage nanohives that rep it. Was it like 50 armor a second? Was that like advanced or proto or something? I'm not sure. I'm pulling that number out of my ass, but I think that's the number.
But yeah, I think the proto ones go at 80 or something like that.
Oh shit! Wow. Okay.
That might be with the Caldari bonus, though. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. But the prices for rep tools are ridiculous to say the least. 21,000 ISK for almost 22,000 ISK for one piece of equipment at the proto level is just that's too much.
Well, particularly when you're carrying around 3 to 4 pieces of that pretty much all the time now, since all the tiers have 3 to 4 equipment slot, your price per suit has certainly gone up, and I think that like I said last week, it's very difficult to gauge how much utility you're getting out of that equipment, and how does that equate into ISK, which is kind of the name of the game there when you're dealing with like a loss sort of situation. So, I mean, you have to, like you said, really look at, how that is scaling up, especially at the proto level, because I know we kind of have a mentality of, go proto or go home, particularly with Logi equipment, because, the benefit of the lower tiered stuff is, sometimes a little underwhelming for a lot of logistics players out there.
A lot underwhelming.
It depends on the logistics player. I'm fine with using a BPO needle and a standard nano hive.
Yeah, standard nano hives are fine.
See, the only thing though that I can't get away from though is a proto rep tool. I refuse to use anything less than proto because it's shit. Standard is like I don't know. It's like walking up to somebody who's just got a really bad car accident, and they're cut up and bloody everywhere, and you just like hand them a pack of band-aids and say, "Here, that's all we got for you right now." It's unacceptable that those repair rates, for me at least.
Yeah,
And
that's for sure.
And I think I was looking at the cost of my I think I looked at my advanced Logi suit, my advanced Minotaur Logi, and it's about 30,000 ISK or so. And that rep tool, that 21,000 ISK rep tool, is more than half of the cost of the entire suit. Which is.
So is that what you're doing a lot? Is running advanced Logis
Oh.
and proto rev tools?
Absolutely. I have a BPO, I think I bought that BPO from you. A BPO Logi suit that I'll run as well if I'm, if I'm not, I want to say in need of ISK, but if I don't want if I don't want to lose, a lot of ISK, I'll throw on that BPO. And it's essentially the same setup as my advanced. It just has, a proto rep tool with a little bit less armor and and shields.
You can make money doing that though, right?
Oh,
Going Apex with that proto rep tool.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
you can go. Yeah.
I feel the same way about scanners. I have a 200-meter scanner at proto, and there's nothing like even close to that.
Yeah, I think it's fairly safe to say that the price scales extremely steeply at proto, but I think also the effectiveness does. I mean, kind of like Bait was saying, you look at like the standard repair tool, and you look at a focused core repair tool, and it's just like what it's completely you can't even compare the two. And I think that it might also be worth looking at kind of a more fundamental reassessment of how scaling of everything works in terms of effectiveness, in terms of ISK, in terms of even resource costs. I know the Logi suffer from some weird resource issues still. I know that's one of Jay's big problems with the normalization of some resources in the Logi suits. I think that I don't think just quick fixes are gonna really fix the issue. I think it's gonna be kind of a core. Let's look at everything as a whole, find out how we want this to work, and then actually implement it rather than just pushing numbers around.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think we need to completely tear the logistics roll apart, and build it from the ground up, erase all the current numbers, and either keep the bonuses or reapply the bonuses or change the numbers or whatever you have to do. But it needs to be rebuilt from the ground up just as much as AV needs to be rebuilt from the ground up.
Also, to get some of the best Logi equipment, you have to spend time in faction warfare.
Oh,
not
absolutely.
just time in faction warfare, but time playing for factions that are against each other. If I want to run a suit with the best rep tool and the best uplinks at the same time, that means I'm spending time in Minotaur and Amar faction warfare.
That's why you just pick what you would rather have. At least that's my personal philosophy.
I can't do. I have to do both. I'm like OCD that way.
Yeah, I can understand that. I just don't want to kill my beautiful Minotaur standing sitting at, I think they're like level 7 right now, and I love that getting I think is it like 1,400 loyalty points per win or whatever, or something like that, 300 per loss, and just doing that for 2 weeks or hell even a month, and coming back and being able to get 400 of those Republic Boundless rep tools at 5,000 ISK a piece and 150 LP. That's amazing. And I think they're a little bit. I don't think they're as good as the 6kin.
Oh no, they're really good rep tools. I consider them the best rep tools.
Yeah, they are very good.
They're not the longest or the strongest beam, but overall the stats are they're really good.
Yeah, they're acceptable. Which is where I've been getting my rep tools for the past year is in factional warfare.
I mean, I basically consider those the best rep tools.
Oh yeah, price wise, and just ease.
No, I just mean overall use.
Oh yeah, okay, I feel you.
Well, and I think that's actually probably an appropriate route to take, in my opinion, for what Fact War rewards actually yield. Is it's not necessarily that it's the best. Like you could still get with ISK the best, but a combination of stats. Overall, it feels like it's performing better. May that be a good mix of range and rep rate and fitting costs and whatnot. And I think that a side grade, if you will, something that's appealing but not necessary to be effective, because I think that having incentives to actually go into Fact War for some unique equipment is a good thing. I think that also you can apply the same logic to the district store or the DK store, where it's not necessarily better, but it's it's different and it's appealing in a way that you'd still want to go get it, but you don't feel like you have to in order to actually be effective in the game.
Yeah,
Here's
that rep tool's got like basically the second best rep strength, second best length on the beam, and it actually is very low fitting cost. So I consider it like a must-have on my min logis.
Oh, absolutely. Now, the question I just thought of actually, should the loyalty store, stuff, and we use the rep tool as an example, should it be like 3/4 of the cost of like a standard marketplace proto rep tool, or is that too much? Is that too little? Because at that point you're basically just giving out free repair tools.
Well, I don't know, my min faction warfare pool, I mean, I have a lot I want to draw from that. I also get my combat rifles from there, my specialist combat rifles, and I mean, I would definitely buy and sell BPOs if I ever saved up enough points, but most of it goes to like Logi, rifles for my Logi and rep tools for my Logis.
Has anybody gotten the Blood Raiders skin from the DK yet?
No.
Yeah, we can just talk about that briefly. So, as people may or may not be aware, when you do Planetary Conquest, you owning a district basically through various means allows access to district credit or DK, which can then be spent in the district store in the marketplace, which for a while was empty, so DK served no purpose. But I'm not sure when it happened. The CPM might know better, but it has been populated with a few items, one of which, as Aeon pointed out, is a Blood Raider skin. Though if I recall, the price is actually extremely high from what I hear.
100K.
And on average, if you're in a fairly active PC corporation, how many DK can you expect to get per day, so to speak? Like, is 100K a lot? I'm not aware.
It's 500K per win, 200K per loss. Plus, your corp might generate some extra for you if they're,
500K? That should mean 5,000.
Sorry,
Well, it's 500.
500.
It's
Sorry,
500.
I didn't mean K. That's stupid. No, it's 500 per win. I don't know why I said K.
So, if I'm correct, that works out to 200 wins to get the skin?
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a little insane, if you ask me.
I don't disagree.
Then again, we all know that skins and apparently all currencies are absurdly priced in dust.
The other things that are in the store are there's like a bunch of militia BPOs, which I don't think anyone cares about. And there are faction warfare boosters in there, 7-day faction warfare boosters. So I don't know. I'm kind of curious what made CCP pick that odd little selection of things to put in the market.
Are those BPOs tradable?
Not currently, but
God damn it!
But
Really?
isn't Rotati planning to
they're
make
not
all
tradable?
BPOs? No, they're not. They're just militia module
sure?
blueprints.
Wait,
Are you
so
sure?
Oh, yeah, it's because they're supposed to be tradable with the hotfix.
Apparently,
Oh, yeah, so-
they're gonna make everything tradable soon. That's a blueprint. But
so that stuff in the district credit market or whatever the fuck it's called will be tradable after Fox 4?
that's just the rumor I heard, is that they're gonna make everything.
Well, yeah, that's what the Ritati spreadsheet was saying. So yeah. Oh, dude, if that's the case, man, that'd be great.
Yeah, but those faction warfare boosters are easy to overlook. But I mean, I have seen corps running all together in faction warfare like all week, and those faction warfare boosters last for 7 days. So I don't think that's a coincidence that those heavy PC corps are now spending more time in faction warfare than ever.
And when deciding what to put in that little place in the market, if we put in things that you can get elsewhere, people just shrug. But if you put in something new, I mean, how much else is new that hasn't been, sold elsewhere before? So it's tricky to know what to put in and then to balance it out versus any exploits that might come up. But that's where you got to start slow.
Yeah,
Well-
the guys who are winning PC are now fat on faction warfare points theoretically, and what is that going to do to the game?
Well, I mean, you're going to get fat on faction warfare points no matter what. I mean, we don't put it, like, there was never a cap on how many LP you could get in a day or a week. So, I mean, if you had the dedication, you could just buy boosters and just farm it endlessly. And apparently,
But now they don't even need to spend Aurum to get to that point. They can, they don't even, Aurum is no longer, was taken out of the equation, which seems like a weird move for CCP.
If they spend enough time doing both PC and faction warfare. So that's a lot of time invested.
Yeah, but some people are willing to invest it, clearly, from what I've seen.
And should we punish them for that?
Yeah,
This
I
is,
think
this is a reward.
you
of a
should
sort.
reward people for playing the game, which is an issue we've had with passive games. I mean, I'd rather have them play the game a lot and get rewarded for it rather than not play the game and get passively rewarded. So I think overall that's actually a positive.
I mean, it's not like it's not like people being fat on LP points hurts or affects the game in any significant way. I mean, other than maybe you see a couple more proto suits from the LP store floating around in proto weapons or whatever, but that's the game as it is right now.
And honestly, I think what you'll end up seeing is more so people buying Apex suits with that LP rather than the gear. Aside from those, specialty equipment you were talking about before, which are actually unique to the store. But I think if people are going to grind that LP, they're going to spend it on something they can only get in Fac War. And for the most people, I think those are going to be the Apex suits.
Yeah, the whole thing with the DK store, I mean, the way I explained it before the items ever hit the market, the way I explained it to people was like, there's only so much expectation you can have with something like that. The district market, if we had put a bunch of new stuff in there, like if we had made officer weapons a district market thing, it would have created a positive feedback loop in which PC players would just play PC, get the DK, get the stuff, the officer weapons from the district market, and then keep playing PC with the officer weapons, and it would just create a loop. So
yeah, I guess when you put it that way, it could have been worse.
And so then you think about that, and then you think of the opposite spectrum, where if what if we just copied and pasted the faction warfare market into the district market? Then it's just another fucking currency you have to jumble with in your fittings, which nobody likes. That's something that I really wish we would do away with, is because at this point we have 4 different currencies we fuck with.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the purpose of the DK, from my understanding, was basically ISK was too fucked up for them to even attempt to fix. So they were adding this as a new reward for PC. But ideally, you'd want to create a system. If if we have reported, for example, in assets were wiped, you could kind of do away with the DK, so to speak, and actually approach it from having only the 3 currencies from before, which I think would have been more appropriate. But it was too screwed up to really fix after the fact.
All right, and the hilarious part about that is that with militia BPOs being tradable in hotfix Fox 4, I mean, you'd have to find a buyer, but essentially you could just convert DK to ISK anyway. So,
you've got a buyer.
Yeah, I mean,
I will take that off your hands.
That's going to be a given. I mean, pretty much anything a reward is that it's going to be transferable to ISK, no matter how you look at it, and that's just kind of the nature of the beast.
I think the hopes and dreams were that instead of trying to get people to win 250 some odd matches, we were going to try to get them to actually sell their clones from the districts, and create areas of opportunity for those fights. But I mean, people are they're too hesitant to go all in, more times than not. So I don't think it's really going to work.
Too few people actually active in PC.
Right.
Yeah, the apathy is pretty strong, and I think that still sticking with a clone-based, system for DK. I mean, obviously you get the reward from the win, but like you said, them actually selling the clones to get the DK, you're still effectively using clones as currency at that point, which is not something that happened in the past, and I didn't expect it to happen in the future, which is why we were doing a lot of the PC rework. We stressed you need to move away from that clones as currency sort of system, and it didn't happen. And I think that the resultant, which, because nothing changed effectively in that particular aspect, is the same as before, where people just hang on to their clones because it's more tactically viable to do so and just kind of soak up the wins for the points rather than actually get rid of your clones and whatnot.
Right, and that's the same reason that cargo hubs are so damn popular instead of
Oh,
the other
God.
types,
Yeah.
which is something that needs to die.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please save me from repetitive maps in PC.
Yeah, we've talked about this in the past, but I mean the whole tactical benefit of having one particular infrastructure over the other just I don't know. I mean, like, I like the idea of the infrastructure. I think it's cool. It adds diversity to the field, but when you basically have one that is just better than the others because it provides a better defense, so to speak, that's what gets used. I mean, like, I'm pretty sure that at least 95, not 100% of all infrastructure in PC now is got the cargo hub still, right?
Pretty much.
It has more variety than it used to, but not by nearly enough.
I had
Yeah.
strongly advocated during my term. I was one of the people who wanted those to be literally reset when the revamp came out.
No, I think we talked about that too, and I agreed with you that I would have preferred they just shut the effects off, randomize the maps, and if you wanted to change the map, you could, but you wouldn't gain any benefit from it like you currently do. And if they could revamp those bonuses later so they didn't have this effect that they currently do, that'd be great. But in terms of map diversity stagnation, it's still pretty bad. And I think that people are really sick of playing on the the cargo hub. And I mean, that might be even something worth advocating for still, even though PC is, as you guys pointed out, kind of stagnating, something just to kind of mix it up a little bit to make it a little more variety to the battles rather than just, the same map over and over again, because that's what makes sense tactically. It's the same issue you see with the clones, like I said before, it's what makes sense, so that's the way the meta is going to be driven, because people obviously want to win, they want to hang on to what they have, and they're going to make choices to do so. And if you have one clear choice over the other, everyone's going to do it, or at least the vast majority, and that leads to really boring meta gameplay.
Well, I mean, the meta gameplay was pretty boring to begin with, because when you think about it, there's, other than the DK, which was only a recent innovation, there is no tactical value to having districts in the first place, other than, generating fights, which can be done without the whole clone gaming mechanic.
Yeah, and I think that's further proof that the lack of location having a purpose or even mattering is a big problem. I think the fact that you can pretty much, even with attrition rates, you can still pretty much launch attacks wherever the hell you want almost all the time and really not feel the effects of it. And it's a problem. I think that if you had forced people to actually have a central location and they had to physically move around the map, and that took time and resources, you would see a lot more diversity in terms of PC and how the overall kind of gameplay of war played out, because you'd be moving around. Okay, I'm going to attack this front, and this guy's going to flank around this side through this system, and it would have been a lot more interesting. And I think, unfortunately, with the PC rework, it was kind of we need to fix this, but we don't have the resources to have the depth we're looking for. And unfortunately, I kind of see that position importance being kind of a core feature, and the fact that's not in there, it leaves me reluctant to believe that it'll ever actually be in there, at least in the current structure they have, which is a bit disappointing, because I think it would solve a lot of the issues that we currently see with PC in terms of overall gameplay and how the meta works.
Yeah, I mean, we strongly talked about location when the whole revamp discussion was happening. I don't think it fit in their view of how much they could get done and what they wanted to spend on it.
Yeah, and that's, of course, evident of lack of resources allocated to Dusk currently, which is, it's frustrating, because I mean, if you're going to try to market PC as kind of your main keystone of gameplay for the game as a whole, it's really got to behave the way you want it to, and it's not going to with the way that they have it. So it's kind of like, we can't get it to work because we don't have the resources, but it's difficult to get the resources because it's not working the way it should.
It's a chicken or the egg situation.
Pretty much.
No, but map randomization would be a good first step.
Yeah. No, I think there's things that can be done, and that's not intensive as far as I know in terms of dev time to make that happen.
Oh, but this is CCP we're dealing with, so could all these changes be done, or some of the ones that, at least some of them, if not all of them, could those be done on the current platform, theoretically, hypothetically?
I think most of the location mattering type changes. That's all. That's not a lot of. It's not something that would take memory or performance. It's really just a lot of programming. A lot of design work to come up with that a lot of UI, a lot of new mechanics to really set where you are and why it matters that you're there.
I mean, shit. Look at the sovereignty stuff going on with Eve right now. They still can't decide on what they really want to do with it. I know there's the new sovereignty mechanics they released, and from what
it's
I've
already
seen,
been basically thrown out as what they want to get rid of again.
Yeah, so I mean, you obviously have CCP having a real hard time trying to balance this player ownership thing. I mean, it's not really working right in Eve. You had the blue donut, and they try to mix it up, and like Zell said, they've thrown it out already because a lot of it just isn't going to work. And it happened in Dust too, where you had players owning everything, and it they reworked it, but again, it's still really not quite doing what they want it to do. I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure if they can, after 10, 11, 12 years of Eve, and they still can't, get it working the way they want it to. It's a little discouraging.
It's really.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I think most PC that happens, I mean, is either A, because people want to have a fun fight, or B, there's like someone's ego behind, owning districts or taking districts. That's most people's motivation for staying in PC.
Which you could have gotten with, for example, the old court battle system, which kind of turned into the fact war, so to speak. But where you could set up a battle, particularly if you wanted to have a fight against two people, kind of for, like you said, people who have the ego and they want to have the bragging rights of, hey, we beat so and so, doing this. I think that a court battle system actually facilitates that really well, and I think that it kind of turned into, particularly near the end before the rework in PC, that's what it was being used for. Was people were basically renting districts out to do player spun up matches, which is great that was a possibility, just not great that it had to be done in a system that was not designed for that purpose,
Yeah. And I think like your major problem with any kind of sovereignty system, be it Dust or Eve, is that you're always going to have these megalomaniacs that are like, they want everything. They want everything under their control, and they're willing to make alliances and coalitions in order to get it under their control. And then in order to combat that, you have to have somebody who's equally megalomaniac. But it's hard to keep that kind of motivation when you have real life going on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I've said before, chaos is good, but the problem is you got to find that balance of how do we inject chaos into a system to break up massive coalitions like that and actually make it accessible for other people, but not make it so chaotic that those who have earned territory, that it's not so much of a pain in the ass to hold it that they just stop caring. Which, I mean, you kind of saw that in the very beginning of PC, where it was just such a clusterfuck that people just didn't care anymore. It was like, it's not worth it because the benefit's not there. And so they ramped up the benefit, and then it had the opposite effect where it wasn't chaotic enough because you can lock everything down, and now the benefits questionable, and it's still not quite there. I mean, it's an ongoing issue, and like I said, it's an extremely hard line to meet, to have it be accessible to a large amount of the player base without it kind of turning into that, like you said, coalition of megalomaniacs who just want to own everything. And I mean, even if a new group comes by, they may just join up, and that it further propagates the problem.
Right. Well, another thing is that and this is just a personal opinion. This isn't like the opinion of the CPM here. This is my personal opinion, is that it's way too goddamn easy to hit the end game. Like, there's not enough content in order to propagate the use of PC as a mechanic. Because PC is considered the end game, but once you get to the end game, what's there left to do? Like, once you have all the territory in the world, once you have the blue donut, the only thing left to do is get jaded. And I think that's what happens to a lot of entities like Aeon and Seraphim and all these big time alliances that came about, and then they just disappeared because there's nothing left to do. I mean, like, I'm sitting at 90 million SP on Dust 514, which is actually more SP than my character in EVE Online, which is kind of ridiculous in my opinion. And like, Cross and I will disagree on this, but I think like there's nothing left for me to do in the game, and I've done the PC thing, I've done the faction warfare, I've done pub matches. For me, there's nothing left to do in the game other than, CPM,
no new fits.
So, yeah, I mean, like, I've got all the assaults, I've got all the logistics, I've got 2 sentinels and 2 scouts maxed out. There's nothing left to do.
That was what I got pleasure out of for a long time, was making new fits. So I don't know, but
Well-
maybe you've exhausted all those options. I'm not sure.
Well, I'm not sure if you pay attention to my Twitch streaming, but there was a time where I actually did an entire day where I did fits that people proposed in the Twitch stream, and they got a little crazy. Like a militia Minmatar light frame with breach flaylocks. That was interesting.
Yeah, I mean that's the issue you run into with games like this, is that eventually you really do run out of stuff to do, and you pretty much end up doing just weird stuff, like you said, crazy fits. But that only gets interesting for so long as well. I mean that problem is going to crop up when development stagnates in terms of actual content. I mean you can add new AI, new UI and push numbers around and tweak balance and whatnot, but that doesn't really generate content. And when PC again starts to stagnate, the end game doesn't generate content, and you start to get very repetitive, which I think is a big problem in terms of player retention, is that people just kind of get bored. I mean, sure, you can train all four of a suit type, but the gameplay doesn't change that significantly that you feel like, hey, this is something new and different. It's more of a, well, I'm going to train this now, so I guess I'll ground out the SP to make it happen. I mean, it's more of a MMO, I'm grinding because I can mentality, and that works for some people, but I think for a large majority of particularly FPS players, you don't get that. I mean, they want to feel like the effort they put into a game in terms of developing their character is going to actually yield results that feel unique and interesting, and after a while you kind of lose that, particularly if you aren't adding new content or changing things up.
Right. There's a psychological concept called operant conditioning, and it's it's easier to explain it if I give you the experiment that they used. They took lab rats and put them into a maze, and then they found that the lab rats that were not rewarded made far more mistakes than the ones that were rewarded, but the ones that were rewarded intermittently actually did far better than either of the other two groups. So what you have with Dust 514 is a Skinner box. You play a match, you get ISK, you get SP. You play a match, you get ISK, you get SP, and it's just a constant. Like there's no intermittence to the reward system. It's just you're just constantly grinding, and especially with a PvP system where you're having to grind against the opposition and dealing with the bugs and the matchmaking and the maps and all the little things, it gets frustrating very, very easily. And without a lot of content to progress into and a lot of content to actually move toward, once you hit that end game, you start to notice those bugs and frustrations a lot easier. So, I mean, it's kind of what we're left with is, we're stagnant because we can't introduce a lot of new content, and the content that we can introduce is sort of a lower priority to the things that we can do to make the game better.
Poor Dust 514.
Hashtag poor Dust 514.
Exactly.
I mean,
and it's not that once you reach the end game, you see more of those bugs. I assume you mean technical bugs, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, you see those as soon as even when you're in the academy, I guess you still feel the effects of, oh my god, I can't run up this fucking mountain, or I keep getting stuck on a rock that I can see in the terrain, but it doesn't stick up.
Well, what I meant is more along the lines of like railgun ghost firing.
I see.
Right?
I see. Okay.
Stuff that you
yeah.
can only see once you progress into that progression. So.
I see. Okay.
Well, there you go. It's not a glitch. It's a content feature. You can find the new bugs as you skill into stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure it's going to make a great selling point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's CCP for you, but yeah.
Now,
I mean,
if they marketed that way,
Come test with us.
if they offered a reward for it, I mean, you can do some innovative stuff with some really weird concepts. I think there's this game on Steam called The Flock right now, where once there's been 27 million deaths or something, the game just disappears from the Steam market.
What?
Yeah, it's an interesting little. Just look it up. It's just it doesn't have anything to do with Dust, but it's certainly an interesting marketing concept.
I'm sure it certainly drives sales of those who want to get in on it to be part of it before it disappears.
Right.
But I mean, marketing in games is always a very interesting way to go about it. And you see some really unique things. Like I forget what the name of the game was called, but it was a game where you get to play once, and then once you die, you never get to play it again. And so I'll have to look up the exact name of it later. But basically, the entire world is playing this one instance of the game, and there's like 2 characters. And once your character dies, your turn is over, and someone else gets to play. And it just cycles by through everyone in the world, and you only get one shot at it. And I think there's ways that the community can interact with it and whatnot. But the stuff like that, it's pretty interesting when hey, come play our game. You get to try for one life. It's you see a lot of these unique things popping up, particularly in Steam and in PC games, which is unfortunate because you don't have the driving market on consoles for that sort of thing.
Which, if you want one that's really interesting, I don't know how this got as popular as it did, but there's a top-down vertical shooter where you play as a spaceship and you shoot at these files, but those are actual files on your computer. Whenever you shoot them, they're deleted forever. It doesn't tell you which ones.
Oh, that sounds healthy.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
The System 32 is the boss.
Yeah, it's all fun and games, so you delete System 32.
Shit. No, that's pretty cool. I mean, and that's just for us, if you see interesting games like that, we're looking for new things to do spotlights on. We did a Shadowrun Dragonfall a few weeks back as a spotlight, as kind of a side discussion where we all played the game and gave it a review and shared our thoughts in kind of a mini episode. So if you find any cool things on Steam, on PSN, PS Plus has a lot of free games coming out all the time. Let us know and we'll take a look at it. If it's something interesting, we'll totally do a spotlight on it.
Let me be clear though, I am not in favor of deleting files on my computer for the sake of Biomassed.
I think I'll probably pass on that one, but that is a very interesting concept, but not one I'm willing to try.
Drive?
I'll tell you what, if someone wants to donate a computer to Biomass, we will play a game and cook it with this game.
Yes.
I don't think Zell's committed enough.
Well, along the lines of content, I mean, if you look at Uprising 1.3, we're apparently got simple crafting coming in. So, and one thing that kind of want to highlight there is because I can see a lot of people saying like, oh, we should get like a grenade that does like harmful gas or something. That's cool.
Oh yeah.
But,
I wanted to what do you guys think of the new grenade system they're coming out with in the next hotfix? They're gonna move all grenades to like massive damage, but just different ranges.
That's great. As somebody who's all about running cheap suits, I recently skilled into core locust grenades finally, and while I was very, very happy with my decision to spend those skill points into getting those grenades, I was not happy with the price. And then I learned that they would that all that was going to be changed. So the damage will be proto level damage, right?
Yeah, I think it's like every
It's
grenade's gonna do
damage, I think.
600. Yeah.
Wow, dude. So I kind of feel like I just wasted my skill points, but that's beside the point.
It's not a waste because your core locusts are still OP and it's easier to use at proto.
Yeah, they are easier. It just depends on how much.
But it's good that all grenades
blast
will
radius you
actually
want.
be able to dent people for once.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We'll see, because
I'm very
was an
vocal
interesting
and how much I
solution.
hate that.
Well, this
Yeah.
game's about to become Nade 514, but that's fine.
I agree with that. I mean, I think I had problems with the core locust grenade just because of its high alpha potential and massive splash radius. I mean, like it had higher alpha potential. It was the second highest alpha potential for explosive weapons apart from the remote explosives, and the highest blast radius apart from the assault mass driver. So it's pretty powerful for a very low amount of SP.
yeah, I think totally pun intended, it's going to blow up in their faces. I think that you're going to see. I think you're going to see. I almost broke my controller in half the other day when a squad of I think probably 5 or 6 guys, all fit with myofibs, were bouncing around spamming core locust grenades, and it was.
Dude, aren't those guys like the coolest fucking people ever with their core locust grenades and their Mimitar suits and their goddamn mass drivers? Oh, that's God, my favorite people.
Cool is not a word I would use, but I think we'll see a lot more of them with this change.
Yes, you will. A lot more of them and a lot more tanks.
Yeah, it's going to be basically people bouncing around, spamming grenades the whole time, and I'm really not looking forward to that. I think it's going to be terrible.
Well, mass drivers will now be AV weapons, so You know,
they're
But
gonna be crappy AV
there's-
weapons, but
Yeah,
It's-
you-
but
people
still.
are not going to use those for AV and just going to
Nah.
burst your level right
Well,
there.
the
I
thing
don't-
about the Myos is that they got some hefty nerfs. I mean, they doubled the power grid cost on them, so that's going to like really
Fair
hurt
enough.
your fit. And there are other suggestions on the backlog as far as fixing them if necessary, but you know, I'm not going to see that in Fox 4.
Yeah, that is a good point. I forgot about the fitting cost increase on them, but yeah, I really hope we don't see a lot of what I described, because that was enraging. Like, I seriously I'm a pretty calm guy when it comes to playing Dust, but I was pretty much freaking out because it was so annoying that, you know, I kill one guy and the other 4 bomb me with grenades, and there's really no area to run to because everything's exploding around me. So
It used to be
you know,
optimistic too, so you know.
So fucking cool.
It used to be optimistic and calm. Now you're neither.
Yeah, and you can blame the bouncing core grenades for that, I guess.
Well, at the risk of starting a riot with this, if this one thing the Myos did effectively is that it gave the mass driver a niche that it kind of needed, considering that the only like use for the mass driver was getting up on top of a roof. So, I mean, maybe there's like there could be like a creative. Yeah, I know it's horrible. It's
like,
horrible.
That's a stretch, Aeon.
It's a stretch, but you know it's been said. So
Yeah, I guess, man. I guess.
I kind of disagree, actually, because I mean, like, I'm by no means the best player in the game, but I do fairly well with the mass driver, and I do it with both feet on the ground the entire time. I think that it's workable. You just have to, you know, use it the right way, and I don't think that jumping into the air 30 feet was necessary to make it viable.
I feel like it's necessary to say that I'm projecting that message as it is not my own opinion.
Okay, well that's fair. But yeah,
That's
no,
right, kids.
the one thing that really irks me is people saying, "Oh my god, you need to nerf the plasma cannon against infantry because people jumping into the air and they're killing you with it." I'm like, guys, that's have you tried killing someone with a plasma cannon on the ground? It's not something that needs to be nerfed. Believe me, you know it's the combination of the two that's problematic. But you know, luckily we haven't seen any nerfs coming down the line for weapons that don't deserve it because of how they're being used with another module.
I really wish there was like Nerf laser rifle threads because of Myros.
Shit.
Because that would really polarize the community and really show them just how ridiculous they can get.
Jumpy laser fits. It's a thing.
Oh my
It'd be hilarious.
I would love to see someone use that,
should be
actually.
a thing.
If someone can actually pull that off, I would pay to see that.
Dude, yes, put a Victor on there or whatever. Oh my god, that's
Bird
scary.
stalking 2.0.
Dude, that's like the embodiment of the fucking Amar god, like descending upon your squad of fucking blueberries or something, just eating you with a laser. I want to
Killing,
wreck it.
killing everything inside, including your teammates, right?
Dude, yes.
Yeah.
Like it was. I mean, we had like Zarya had the laser rifle feedback thread up, and I'm not sure what happened with that. Like I sort of like laid my comments down and then just kind of like left it because it wasn't, you know, I was busy with the shield changes. But I mean, like honestly, in my opinion, I think the laser rifle would do well to just have its range like exaggerated a bit, to where it like kind of extends in between, you know, what our current rifles and sniper rifles can do. Sort of like fills that gap that we don't quite have.
Yeah, I mean that might be fair. I think for me, I would have liked perhaps a wider range in which it actually remains at optimal. I think that the range where you can actually get 100% efficiency is pretty tight.
Wait, somebody actually proposed extending the range on something? I thought
Oh
we
my
fixed
God.
everything. I thought we fixed everything by nerfing the range and everything. That's how we do things in Dust 514.
Well, we
We
don't
just
know yet.
nerfed the shit out of stuff.
We nerfed the range on sniper rifles. We nerfed the range on regular rifles in the upcoming hotfix. That's
Forge
how things
guns.
get done.
Nerfed swarm
Oh,
launcher
All the
range.
assault rifles.
Nerf swarm.
I
oh,
drink.
sorry.
Everyone
That was
take a
a sore
drink.
spot. That was a sore spot.
I want to bring this out too. Here is Velasat made a very good point, which is that despite the claims of some people that 25 meters isn't a huge amount of space for swarms, which can't kill anything and is really only claimed to be, well, we can kind of drive people away. It is a 40% reduction in their area of effect that they can reach. Less when you consider the fact that you're never actually standing next to a dropship when you fire swarms at it. that 25%, when you take a look at it as a hemispherical area, is huge. It is the biggest nerf that you could ever have to the thing. Short of, when they took an extra 100 meters off, but...
I mean, just gonna stay out of that because it's not my forte.
I mean, militia dropship pilots will like it.
Those poor bastards.
That's right, militia
They're getting
dropship
so
pilots are the only
lucky.
ones threatened by swarms to begin with.
So lucky.
We will have to see how it plays out. I as I've said before, I would like to see a higher DPS shorter range swarm and then a longer range lower DPS, much like you have missiles in Eve. I think that would actually do very well in terms of vehicle balance, because people are typically probably not going to want to use the really long range ones against ground vehicles because you can typically get a lot closer to them, so you're going to opt for the higher DPS, but at the same time you can have the longer range ones for an anti-air system, which I think allows you to kind of balance them separately then, which I think would be really helpful, because we've had an issue of trying to balance both on the AV side and on like the module side even, of like heavy vehicles versus light vehicles and pseudo medium vehicles like with the dropships and whatnot. It's been a problem, and I think that might be a good step in the right direction to getting more options.
It would have been better to if they were only going to do one at a time, to make the anti-dropship one first, given that it's one of only 2 weapons that can even hit a dropship. It is such a huge buff for dropships for this to have gone through, and it should not have been allowed. It should not. It was a huge oversight for anyone to have let it happen.
Here's the thing: is that the world will not actually end because of it. I know you're upset.
It will.
But sure, it may be messed up. It may not be.
It's a sign of complete incompetence. It's not. It's without any proper data to justify it. Let's just nerf this.
I wasn't aware that you're extremely versed on everything going on in the CPM chambers, but that's fine.
Zell, man, of course
he knows everything, and if anything goes wrong that isn't approved by Zell, it will probably cause the end of the game and the world as we know it.
Hey, there's 2 CPM here. If anyone wants to say we have data that proves that we have seen the stats on how effective these are or aren't,
vehicle numbers,
I'd love to hear it. I've been asking for vehicle numbers for a long time. I wanted them public back in my term.
But Zell, you'll only be happy if the vehicle numbers all read 0 because they'll have been removed from the game then. I mean, let's be honest here. You just want them gone.
Vehicles to actually have to die occasionally and encounter the same level of challenge of play that people trying to kill them have to.
I mean, they do if if your only vehicle's like an LAV. I mean, the number is higher if the only vehicles we have are LAV. Fucking LAVs are squishy.
Yeah,
as hell.
I guess
fun.
Yeah, vehicles are fair if we average in all the LAVs people drive around unfit and use for transport.
Killing LAVs is like the reason I AV, and I think I touched on this last week, but it brings me so much joy to see some schmuck call in an LAV in the red line. I just get all giddy, man. Ask the courtmates. It's amazing. You just run over there, you sit on the hill, you wait for that fucker to go down the road, have your little lock-on thing already open, wait for the beep, let go, kaboom, 150 points if you're really lucky, 50 if you're lucky for the kill, and then, whatever, like 40 for the assist. It's great. I live for that shit. But now, I can't be happy.
Just get a plasma cannon and then just do a little bullfighting with them. Try to get them to run you over, and you pop them right in the hood, and they will blow up every time.
Or the wheels, apparently, right?
I guess. I'm not even sure.
I do have a fit that is set up like that. It's a Mimitar BPO, the assault one with a plasma cannon, a Mag-Sex, some Prox REs, and AV grenades. And that is probably the most fun AV fit I've ever made.
Do you know what the most fun AV fit I've ever made was?
Tell me
was more. A Caldari Commando with damage mods and a rodent sniper rifle.
Oh, dude.
Yes, it can kill LAVs. I've done it before.
How many shots?
Wait, the rodent does AV damage?
No, it doesn't.
It does like 450
if you're persistent
base.
enough.
It does enough damage that even the reduced damage is enough to actually make a difference.
Dude, that's amazing. So it doesn't one-shot LAVs then, does it?
No, but I've had a dude send me hate mail because it said rodent sniper rifle when his LAV exploded.
That's amazing.
Just
wanna-
flex it and then quickscope.
I want to try this now.
Well, I still
Wait.
think that the Rodin was originally intended as an AV sniper rifle that accidentally got put in the game, and they went, well, shit. Now it's got to stay in there. And they never really had a chance to change it because people already had them. So
I really wish
guess
they
it
made one.
works.
Like,
Right.
I'd be the first one to say it. Like, the Forge gun is technically an AV sniper rifle, but I mean, like, it's just the Rodin sniper rifle would have been the perfect AV sniper rifle, just because it's a one shot.
Yes.
Well, particularly against the changes to weak points, I could actually see it being, having a very high damage multiplier against vehicle weak points. So you're encouraged to actually, get crit shots on vehicles. But when you do, you're aptly rewarded for it. I would love that mechanic. I would actually do that, and I hate sniping, but that sounds fun to me.
I'm not sure if you saw where I posted it on the forums. I mean, it's probably buried somewhere, but I did the math on it, and the Minmatar Commando, even losing the Swarm Launcher bonus, might actually be a fair competitor with the Breach Mass Driver. Because if you have all skills maxed out, you're doing 1,000 damage a shot on the weak point of an HAV.
Holy shit.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be potent. It's going to be much harder to pull off than, a dedicated AV weapon.
Right.
And you're going to have to be very well skilled into it. Like, I can probably do it because I've got all that stuff maxed out. But I think for people picking up a mass driver, they're going to be very underwhelmed with how it performs against vehicles.
I don't know. I mean, that Breach Mass Driver might be the turning point.
True. I mean, that'll get me to try it at the very least because it's utter shit otherwise. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, it's going to change a lot of things. Like I said before, with hotfix Fox 4, it's going to certainly change things up. The world will probably not end. It might get screwed up in some parts, but it'll be interesting to try at the very least.
Yeah, there's it's just everything's really busy right now. I mean, like, I know, like, there was a lot of pitchforks over the duration with which feedback was done over hotfix Fox 4, but it was like we had like, I remember trying to tell this to Adipim. I said that, like, from the time that I posted up the first iterations of the shield changing, which was the racial stats, which was awful. It was just awful. That was 10 days before hotfix Fox 4 was announced. It was literally 10 days. So it's like a little bit more than a week to just get everything hashed out from the community. And it's just like, yeah, the duration on it was horrible. But, we had to make a first step. We had to put that foundation so that we can make iterations in the next, coming patches. So, I mean, the point I'm trying to make here is that, like, any world-changing events that come from this hotfix, just be calm, and we'll iterate on them in the next one. And try to make
the problem is when the next one goes very quickly from, maybe in a month to, when was the last hotfix? It was like 6 months ago. And that was, that used to be a monthly process. So it's very concerning that feedback isn't always getting integrated on changes before they're made to the game.
Right.
I will say that CCP does seem to have a bad habit, whether it's intentional or not, that they'll announce, hey, we're thinking about making this change. We want feedback, but
and it's already a final decision.
Even if it's not final, they've got a really good idea of what they want it to be, and you won't see any substantial changes from community feedback before that fix is implemented. And I think that they've, even if it's not intentional or if they're aware of it or not, but we've seen it before. I mean, and Rattati is obviously much better than we've seen in the past, but he kind of gets a bee in his bonnet for, I want to do it this way. What do you guys think? And we go, we don't really like it. And he goes, well, we're going to do it anyways. And
that's basically what he said on Swarms. He's like, I'm very confident that this is the way forward. And I'm like, based on your ego, maybe? I don't know.
Regardless of what it's based on, I mean, obviously it's not the end all. I don't think they expect it to be the final change at all. But, you kind of have to change something before you can, I just wish that if they have a plan for how they're going to progress with this particular thread of swarms and whatnot, that they were a little more open about, hey, we're going to do this first, see how it goes. We're planning on doing this afterwards in a reasonable time frame once we get data on how this affects the meta and whatnot. I think that if they release that, people would feel a lot more comfortable with it. I mean, regardless of where you stand in the issue, transparency on the plan for hot fixes and balance changes is very important. I mean, I've asked in the past, it's great that we've got a roadmap for updates. I think that's fantastic. It's a wonderful step in the right direction. I'd like to see the same thing for balance updates. Like, what are you guys looking at next? What's the plan? I mean, what's the reason behind this change? And if there's more parts to this change, what comes next. And I think that would put a lot of people at ease, because then they could go, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. If you're going to do this next, then this might be more reasonable. But unfortunately, you get a lot of silence in that regard. Even with feedback, the plan to move forward is not always very clear, especially for the player base that isn't under NDA.
The hilarious part is that most feedback often comes after the proposal has been finalized.
Yeah, well, that's my point exactly, is that they've kind of already made up their mind of what they're going to do, and feedback is kind of irrelevant because, well, we'll take your feedback, but we're going to do this anyways, and then we'll change things after the fact if, you disagree.
Well, one of the things that's been brought up recently is that, a lot of people are asking for SP refunds for the Minotaur Commandos because they spec'd into it specifically for swarms. And, the thing is, those changes were being discussed a year ago. Obviously they weren't official feedback threads and whatnot, and nobody really saw it coming. And I understand the necessity for an SP refund whenever something that you spec'd into a suit for has changed. But at the same time, man, it's how much warning do you give a person before I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, fundamental changes can happen at any point. I mean, you saw that with Caldari Scouts as well. People were asking for refunds, and that never happened. So I think that the Minotaur Commandos that are upset with this are really going to not get anything out of it. And then that's just unfortunately the way it's going to be, because, sometimes you have to make fundamental changes. And if you have to give a respec for every time someone's upset with a change, you'd be giving away free respecs constantly.
Right.
I mean, I had to level 2 heavy suits. I originally leveled Galente, and then they switched slot layout, so I felt compelled to level Amar. And, so there's been a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. See, Heracles, all you have to do is throw an assault HMG on that Amar suit, and you've got the perfect AV fit.
Oh, I know.
You
put AV nades and assault HMG, and you're
yes.
I'm so glad somebody brought that up. But before I get to that, I just want to make a mention, okay? Before anybody hangs me, yes, I am going to ask CCP if they are willing to do an SP refund on the Minotaur Commandos.
Good.
No, that's out of the way. No, that's out of the way.
Lynch.
The Assault HMG, I love it. I tried it out for the first time the other day, and I was impressed. But the thing is, I'm thinking that between it and the Galente Assault rate of fire bonus, the HMG is gonna fucking die off, man.
Fuck.
I'm so worried that it's just never gonna. Yeah, I think the HMG is just gonna fucking die off, and we're kind of looking at different ways to, make that better.
Oh yeah, so everyone is gonna. I don't know. I should start investing in Rattati's officer suit before the market on them gets ridiculous.
It's already ridiculous.
Oh yeah, I mean it's because the Assault HMG, from what I'm hearing, is better than the HMG, just by and large, just because of the range and the hit detection. Yeah. But when you cross that with shotguns and the Galente Assault's rate of fire bonus to assault rifles, it's very quickly seeming that the HMG is gonna not have a niche anymore. That it's just
the bonds are ridiculous. Nobody seems to mention the ridiculous.
We mention them all the time. Every day.
Every day, dude. You have no idea. Skype for the past week and a half has been nothing but bonds.
Man, fuck those shotguns.
We know it.
We are fully aware. We are 100% aware.
Whoever thought of a fully automatic shotgun? Just
bonds.
No.
Well,
Mr. Bonds himself.
Fully automatic shotgun with the ridiculous range and boosted damage. Yeah.
I think the idea of an auto shotgun is fine. You just can't make it better in every other way at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, but Pokey, it's officer.
Oh, and everyone, God, that's another thing that I've had. I didn't see it so much until I really did the event for the Amar skin, where the officer gear started just pouring into pub matches because everyone was, oh my God, the amount of officer stuff disgusts me. I mean, I'm not a huge EVE player. I played EVE a fair amount a few years ago, and officer stuff was like, holy shit, that he's really going all out. Now it's like, oh, he's got a freaking officer gun, whatever. I've seen 12 of them this match. The amount being injected into the game is absurd.
I want to cut you off just real quick. I posted it in Mumble, so you're gonna have to post it whenever you actually make the post on the Biomassed website. But Breakin posted a CPM show and tell about all the things that we talked about leading up to Hotfix Fox 4. One of the things that was mentioned as a top priority was the amount of officer weapons in the game right now. So do yourself a favor and go look at that.
Yeah, I actually forgot about that there, but I have seen it, and that was very, very cool to see him post that. I think that's something I'd love to see continue. I think a lot of people would agree it's good to see that sort of thing coming from the CPM, because if CCP isn't going to be more transparent, it would be good if you guys can, within the limitations of your NDA, obviously.
Right. Personally, I disagree with wanting officer weapons to be a part of PC, but I mean, I think the solution, this is my personal opinion, I think the solution is to take a look at the warbarge itself, because turns out officer weaponry is pretty much, other than experimental, is the only weapon that you can get for free just by logging in.
Yeah, because passive gains are bad, as we've said before.
Right.
The whole passive nature of the warbarge is dangerous, particularly when you have officer weapons tied to it. I was always fine with them being overpowered because they were extremely rare and you had no way of reliably getting them other than just playing the game, and that's no longer the case. They get handed out like candy, and I think that's wrong. It needs to be changed very soon, because this is just going to turn into a massive stockpiling problem like you saw with ISK and PC, where people are just generating massive amounts of overpowered weapons, and it kind of defeats the purpose. I mean, I saw a thread earlier where they said, well, let's nerf officer gear because it's so common now. And I'm like, no, you're missing the point
Nerf the
here.
warbarge.
I'd say it's already a stockpiling problem.
Yeah,
I
it
know
is.
people who already have hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of these weapons.
Which is actually really interesting, because we've gotten reports that it's actually being used as a tradable currency in PC between corporations now.
Yep. Instant.
Jesus.
Yeah, so they just pretty much ditched the DK market in favor of officer weapon proliferation. But
People will ring just for, like 20 bones.
yeah, seriously.
And the annoying part about this is that I know Kane Spira was harping about this for a long time, ever since the warbarge came out, and he spent half his life savings on leveling his warbarge up. That this passive generation is really bad, and I think we're finally really starting to see the true scope of how bad it is with this officer gear. And it's like, if you had just listened to the player base when we said this is terrible, this wouldn't be happening, and now you wouldn't be scrambling to fix it. So, again, it's frustrating when you have very clear feedback from multiple sources saying this is a really bad system, it needs to be changed, and nothing happens, and then it blows up in their faces.
Skirting the NDA here, but there are underlying reasons that might never be fully realized, and that's all I'll say on the matter.
Oh dear. Well, yeah, I won't press you on that since you won't answer, but yeah, no, it's
I
frustrating.
think the answer is Orm. It all goes back to Orm.
Yeah, well, I wasn't gonna go there, but I'll let people
I
decide on
did.
their own. Yeah,
I'm a
did.
cheeky monkey.
Or Lord.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but on the other side of the argument is that, if we do away with the passive officer generation with the warbarge, what becomes of the investments that the players have made in order to get that warbarge part, those warbarge
They still get
components?
experimental.
Right,
That
but-
stuff is not being used a whole lot right now. It'll
But much
find
of-
its niche if they replace officer with experimental.
Right, but much in the same scope as the Minmatar Commandos asking for an SP refund, you're fundamentally changing what they originally put their money into in the first place. So it's a delicate situation. Like, how much do you change? How much officer weaponry is produced by the warbarge? Do you nix it entirely and validate those investments by the players, or do you tone it down slightly in order to achieve balance?
Not to say one is more wrong than the other. It's just, it's a delicate situation.
Right.
Well, it's actually interesting because when they first announced the warbarge, they had mentioned the subsystems, but not necessarily what they did. I thought that the factory was actually going to be part of a crafting system that you would then use to generate and build weapons using parts and whatnot. And I think it may be fine if you actually have an active element included in that and make it kind of a tool for crafting, and then you can obviously generate higher end gear with that. I think that's fine because it actually includes playing the game and getting the resources needed to build stuff, and your investment is obviously still worth it because you're still producing high level gear, but it actually takes more effort rather than just guns popping out for free pretty much.
We already have weapon scrap dropping, so
Right.
Yeah, which in the same vein, there's also an argument for that. Well, at least on my behalf. I don't know about anybody else. I mean, this is an arguable point, but in the same vein, you could also apply that to BPOs. But
Yes.
to a much lesser extent, considering that the power the power range between BPOs and officer gear is pretty extreme.
Well, and that's actually much more of a touchy subject in terms of BPOs, because I mean, you can make the argument that, oh well, I used Aurum, or I paid money to upgrade this, and CCP goes, okay, well, we'll give you your Aurum back. That's fine. But when people, in the case of modifying how BPOs work or removing them or whatnot, if people purchase those BPOs directly with cash, that's a much dicier situation because you can't just refund the Aurum on it. I mean, obviously, when they removed those 4 BPOs for vehicle modules, they gave the refund back in Aurum, because luckily none of those were, directly purchased in a collector's edition or anything like that. But in terms of, like you said, other BPOs that they may want to change how they function, maybe tie it into a crafting system, I think you can't ever remove them once they've been purchased like that, but you can change the function of them. And I think, pushing towards kind of an EVE style where the BPO is more of a means to build things might actually be a good thing, because I know that's obviously an issue with people running free suits all the time, and it kind of screwing up the market and making some ISK saturation problems. I think that if you modified the function of it, you would have a more reasonable solution that people probably couldn't get as upset about.
Right. Bear in mind that that's just a personal opinion of mine, and it is
right.
It is easy to argue, and I can understand the arguments against it. I mean, it's just like the thing with the BPOs, in my opinion, is just like it's a dogmatic principle from EVE, certainly, but it's I mean, on the one hand, everybody complained about the PC ISK generation, which I admit, was needed to be changed. I didn't like how they went about it, completely cutting the cord without giving them something in return, but it needed to be done. Whereas the BPOs, there's nothing stopping somebody just from like grabbing a BPO and just doing their thing and just making tons of ISK that way. Yeah.
Back in the day when I had hope for us having economic wars like in EVE, I was really touchy about BPOs, but now, I don't really care.
Kat, you want to know how you fix that?
Yes.
Hashtag PortDust514.
I had a feeling I knew where that was
Yeah,
going.
I knew it.
I'll allow it.
Reset the economy. No. We have a chance.
Dude, absolutely. Absolutely.
Honest to God, you probably couldn't even do it with a port, because you still have that issue of player investment. People spend money on this thing and they want to know that if all their SP and all their ISK is being transferred over, why the hell aren't there BPOs? Yeah.
I mean, I can see that,
think
but
BPOs have to go with any port. And I mean, I don't think BPOs are the problem in themselves. I think kind of the goal, I think, was, and this is going back to like the FanFest 2014 Legion discussion, is the idea that you'd have a suit that looks a particular, that you earn that suit, and you want to be able to fight as that suit, because we don't really have like all that much in the terms of character customization. But that, maybe you still ideally need to put things on that suit. I mean that I have no problem with normal BPOs, and I would fight for them. I'm not totally thrilled with Apex suits as what they are.
Well, and you actually kind of bring up a bit of a tinfoil point for me, is that you look at the way that drop suits have been progressing and the way they've kind of been pushing things with, we're normalizing all the slots. So now they all have the same slots. And the only thing that's different is the power grid and the CPU. And then we're talking about like, oh, well, what if you made it like a module you put into the suit that, it just modifies the power grid and the CPU. So the suit never changes, but whatever power core you put in there will modify the tier of the suit. Well, at that point, you're basically at that original proposal of all suits are BPOs, and what you put into them is where the cost is, but the suit itself is all free. And so you can use that same suit as many times as you want. And that's the other solution to BPOs, is that instead of removing them, you just make everything, at least at that tier, a BPO. And therefore, you haven't taken away their toy, but you basically made it not mean anything, which, I don't know if people would care so much about
the same
that.
thing.
It fundamentally is, but, perception is a tricky mistress, and I'm not taking away your stuff. I'm just making it, be the same as everything else. I mean, we'd have to see. I mean, it could be converted into a standard BPO power core if you really wanted to make sure people kept their stuff. And, I think that if at that point you're transferring still most of the cost off of the suit, and onto the modules. And if that kind of becomes the format they're taking of, well, standard is kind of the new militia where it's basically free, so be it, But I think the key is you don't want to see a creep of, higher tier stuff like Zel's the Apex suit. I was like, because the Apex is basically better than a standard suit now because it's got more resources on it. It's between standard and advanced, and that creep does make me nervous. But obviously, that was the move they had to make because people had then purchased them with the assumption that hey, it's better than a standard BPO. So they were stuck, which is messy.
And the hilarity is if they had just kept their model of just having it where you couldn't change the fitting on it. If they had just kept that model, it would have been perfectly fine.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think if they wanted to change it so that you couldn't change the fit, but it had the new slot layout, that's fine. But I think they added that kind of that power creep in terms of BPOs starting to reach upwards, which is a little scary to me.
Which brings me to another point. If you notice in Hotfix Fox 4, there was a lot of module changes, especially to biotics. There's a lot of hatred for the armor meta right now, and we're fully aware of that. But we're under I'm not saying that I am under the impression that the best way to go about that is to fix the modules themselves, which is interesting because if you look at the Apexes, they were considered balanced because they didn't have brick tank. They had all these extra modules that were considered, lesser in value, which is hilarious to me because that right there was a clear sign that something was seriously wrong with the balance metrics of the modules themselves. If it was considered that, kinetic catalyzers and cardiac regulators were lesser value than armor plates, then we seriously needed something done way back then. But, only realizing this now because hindsight's 2020.
Well, and that's kind of my issue with the changes coming to the shield HAVs, and that they needed a buff, yes, but I don't like the fact that the buff was done to the base hull. I would have much preferred if they'd have looked at the modules, because if you modify the base hull, now all HAVs of all tiers are affected. It doesn't necessarily change, I guess what I'm getting at is that because a shield HAV's primary means of regeneration, which is obviously kind of the whole key with HAV piloting, is now tied to basically the passive regen. That passive regen is the same for all tiers, and I think you're going to start to see weird things happen between tiers. So, like you said, modifying just the suits themselves is a little iffy. I mean, I'm curious to see how it's going to play out. I think that a buff is needed, but I think at the same time the modules are seriously screwed up, especially when you've got clear winners and clear losers when it comes to fitting modules.
Right. Well, it's that's part of our multi-stage step system is with this shield balancing is because with the numbers as they are in the current game, I'm sure you've seen the chart that I posted, but there was no rhyme or reason to ever balancing those modules with that system. It was just, it would make one thing overpowered, the next thing would be underpowered, even though they're both Caldari, and it was a nightmare. So buffing the base suits with this and nerfing with this hotfix is going to lay down the foundation so that we can actually more accurately predict what's going to happen when we change those modules in the future. So, it'll be like we can know whether or not something's going to be overpowered or underpowered and adjust accordingly.
Here's something that happened months ago while I was trying to fit a suit. I thought, I want to be slightly faster. So I replaced one of my plates with a kinetic catalyzer. Suddenly, I'm 5 power grid above my limit. Yeah, why are kinetic catalyzers much more expensive than plates?
Reasons.
That's one way you can look at it. Why? That makes the plate a better choice. I can fit better weapons, better grenades.
If it's any consolation, they're getting their power grid costs reduced in Hotfix Fox 4.
By 1 or 2 power grid. They still cost far more than plates.
Yeah, but, we're trying. Especially with, the shield suits, because I'm really hoping to God, and I need to make a self-note to tell them to make sure that the officer shield stats or officer drop suit shield stats are fixed, otherwise it's going to be a huge problem. But it's one of the things I'm personally looking forward to is seeing, Caldari Assault is OP, because, just fiddling around with the numbers and proto fits and whatnot, it's possible to get a a Caldari assault with 600, 700 shield HP with like 100 HP a second regen, and then it has a shield threshold that's so high that projectile weapons, it's immune to projectile weapons outside of their optimal range. So it's very possible.
Honestly, I would have to agree. I predict that the Caldari assaults would be better in every way over the Galente assault, at least from my fittings. But I want to see what will happen with that rough bonus, if that will somehow balance it out. I'm interested.
I am so excited to see the Caldari assault is OP threads. Like, I really cannot wait. Just because of like all the tinfoil about how this was a stealth buffed armor.
Wait, there's actual tinfoil about that?
Oh, you have no
Ben
idea.
Havoc confirmed.
Is
Oh,
it really?
people.
Did he make a video about that?
No,
Please tell he did.
I don't know.
Oh, damn.
I don't think he's uploaded a Dust video in a while,
Yeah,
to be
I haven't
honest.
heard anything from him in a long time. I think we
Him
finally
and-
drove him off or something.
Him and
Him and
Pyrex,
Pyrex, yeah.
Yeah,
In the
Pirates.
They
same
finally
fight
stopped
crash.
caring. They probably make like conspiracy videos about Destiny now.
That's
Not
probably
on the
accurate.
channel. That
I barely see them active on Twitter either.
I really wish they would have consolidated their forces into like Dust Info Wars.
the rival Biomassed. That's all just tinfoil and rumor.
Oh, jeez.
It's the onion version of Biomassed.
Oh, that'd be so incredible.
You guys don't
The
have
Onion
competition
writers
right now.
actually
You need it.
realize that they're writing satire, though. That's the difference.
That's true. That's very true.
Oh god,
Correct.
my ribs hurt.
All right, guys. I think we're pushing the hour, almost an hour and a half here. So I think we're probably gonna start closing this up, unless anyone has any very brief closing remarks.
I'm a cat.
He's a cat. Yeah. Okay. Well, in that case, we'll move right into shoutouts and bring the ship in. So let's start at the top of the list again with Aeon Amadi. You got any shoutouts, man?
Shout outs to everybody that helped out with those feedback threads that the CPM has been posting up. You don't know how much help you've been, and you need to keep posting. Seriously.
Awesome. All right, Zell.
I'm gonna give my shout out to. Who do I want to give my shout out to? I don't know. I don't know if anyone deserves it this week.
That was Jay last week who refused to give a shout out.
I'm gonna fill in for Jay this week then and refuse to give a shout out.
You're just being lazy, but I'll let it go. All right, Aiwha Bait.
And for Zell's lack of a shout out, I have a little list. So first off, I'd like to give a shout out, and Corpmates will get this, to the Lord and Savior Jerry. I'd like to give a shout out to Clips Ahoy and Corporation Incorruptibles. I really do enjoy your company in the game. It's fucking great in both in game and in Skype. I'd like to give a shout out to CPM too, for being so transparent. With breaking show and tell thread, and just in general since their term started, it's been great. And you're giving us something that CCP isn't going to give us. And for that, I do appreciate that. I'd like to give a shout out to The Martian. Went and saw that the other day. Fucking great movie.
Oh,
Everybody
that does
should see
deserve a
that.
shout out. You're
Dude,
right.
that movie was so fucking good.
The Martian was good.
Oh.
If you have not yet seen it, your opinions on film are invalid until you have.
Dude, fucking Matt Damon makes that movie.
Okay,
That's all I'm gonna say.
I disagree because I have one thing to say about The Martian, even though I haven't seen it. We have dedicated
You
a
can't-
lot of
you-
money.
no, you
no,
don't.
listen.
Your opinion doesn't matter.
Listen,
Let him finish.
You haven't seen it.
Let him finish, though.
we have dedicated a lot of money between Saving Private Ryan, Interstellar, and The Martian to getting Matt Damon back. Okay.
Yeah, I did
saw
see that.
That was
I
pretty
tried.
funny. All
And
right.
I'd like to give a shout out to Ripley's Cock real quick, and then shout out to the hashtag PortDust514.
Damn it, you stole
that-
mine.
Take
Um,
one
you
step
know-
back. What did you say there?
Ripley's Cock. Going back to the
Bait.
PortDust514. Shut the fuck up, cat.
Signature
go-
material.
Drink your fucking milk. With the small community that we are, we can at least annoy Hilmar and CCB Rouge, and probably Rattati too, although I don't think he gets annoyed by much. We can at least pester them, and as Darth has said, the community's voice does matter. Now, whether or not they'll do something remains to be seen. But we can try. So keep trying, everybody. Hashtag PortDust514 on Twitter and Facebook if you do that shit.
Fantastic. All right, Cat Merc.
Shout out to Port Dust. Yeah, same thing. Keep annoying him.
Post images as well, because those are shiny.
Yeah, and give me ideas for GIF shit posting. I'm sure that helps.
we should run a contest for that. All right, Darth, go ahead.
A shout out to the community that's still here. Keep playing, keep being patient, have hope.
Okay, Heracles.
Shout out to our CPMs for dropping by today, and also a shout out to a couple commenters on my YouTube channel, Event Player and Cax Loco, who are trying to help me learn Spanish. It's probably in vain because I'm horrible at picking up new languages, but I appreciate the effort they put in. So those are my shout outs.
Awesome. All right, and I will be unoriginal. I'll say shout out to Ripley for, I believe it was him. If I'm wrong, I'm terribly sorry, but for starting the hashtag PortDust514. I'm not too versed in the whole Twitter sphere and how that works, but I've seen, at least from my limited viewpoint, a lot of people posting it, a lot of very positive, good messages coming from the players to CCP developers saying, hey, we're a bunch of assholes sometimes. We get that, but we really do care about this game and this franchise, and we want to see it continue. And we realize and you realize this thing is going to die in the PS3, and we don't want it to die, and hopefully you don't want it to die either. So, people getting out there and saying, let's make this happen. You have our support. We want to hear from you. We're excited. We want to know what you guys are up to, and I do truly hope that we get some news or anything really in the near future about what's happening with that, if anything at all, because I think that people are very engaged and energized, and I appreciate everyone out there who's, again, being positive and giving feedback and being vocal in a way that CCP will actually respond to, i.e. not being an asshole. So keep it up, guys. I really appreciate it. The community appreciates it, and we're glad that you're still at it, despite all being a little disgruntled and bitter, because we've been doing this for way too long. But we're getting there, and hopefully something does become of it. So thanks, guys.
Amen.
Yeah. So with that said, we're probably going to bring this to a close. Hopefully Jason is back. I think his son will be fine with that sprain, but hopefully things are going well for him. So yeah, so I think we're gonna come to close episode 74 of Biomassed. So thanks, guys. Thanks for showing up and listening, and good night and good luck.
Meow.